Hey, so I figured I'd show this, put this in the video as well. This is the final result of running the optimize tool on, uh, I don't even know if we can call this a quarantine pack anymore. But you can see it's like almost playable. It's getting some pretty bad frame rates while I'm recording. You can Yeah, I think these are some of the worst angles on the map, though, to be fair, too. Look at how much I can see here. Overall, I don't think this is terrible for considering, like, there's a lot of alpha clipping on this. Yeah, I can come up with all sorts of excuses. Truth is, this just is not playable yet. This is still going to take some more work. But if I were to run this in, like, directly, it wouldn't have stood a chance. When I was measuring the statistics, I'd say this map was probably hitting 350,000 at the maximum. There are some other things that I could probably do to perform better, like the skybox I forgot to change back to a PP shader. I don't know how much processing power that is using. There's a couple other things. I think I'm using Uber shader on some stuff actually. I started, I'll show you. Maybe it's just the grass shaders aren't PP compatible. You can see the grass that... Oh, these are using baked lit. I wonder if that's... I forgot to change these back to PP grass. I could build again and see if these things affected performance. They might have, but honestly I don't know if I need to. You can kind of see like what the tool does. Stuff is like definitely lower quality, but I can compare this to the PCVR version. I actually thought I'd show the PCVR version as well right after this, just to see, because why not? I ran some scripts to convert everything to Uber shader for that one, and yeah, you can tell there's still like a lot of work that needs to be done on the actual map. Like this is just, I can't walk up here. I don't know if I'm actually going to make this a map. I do really like it though. The more I like look around, it looks pretty beautiful. But yeah, I guess with that said, we'll start going over the tool and how this was made. Okay, so let me just say I'm going to start off talking about this tool while I just kind of import packages that we're going to be using for this in the background. This is a tool I've been working on, which kind of like speeds up the flow of Onward map making. Especially for like complex scenes, it should be able to let you take any scene from the Unity store and just kind of like automatically optimize it so it runs on Quest, and set up the collisions the way it should be set up, and have all the proper physics materials and it's all like the painful stuff that to do when making a map making, so you can dedicate your time solely to actually designing the map, placing where the onward objectives go and that sort of stuff. So right now I'm just kind of like going through and importing different packages. I've done some video editing, so I'm actually talking over this in the background. But I'm just importing all the packages. And I want to speed this up because this takes a while. Like each package you have to import takes 5 to 10 minutes. I just sped up those parts. But what the packages you're seeing me import are terrain to mesh, bakery, perfect culling, the Onward SDK, FBX exporter, which you get from the Unity registry dropdown. That's what you see happening now. So if you can see, there's the Unity registry, and I searched FBX exporter and installed that. I'm also importing the Onward SDK package that I created. There's perfect culling. Any else? Feel free to slow down this video and just look at every package I'm importing, but it's I also imported a sample scene. I think it's the one they use from Quarantine. I'll talk a little bit about this as the video actually plays. And then after everything's imported, I just go in and I check. There's a couple errors, but they're all related to the Onward SDK, the stuff that you have to do when you set it up. So next I'm going to do that. I go into the project settings, and I'm just going to go through these and set up basically what it says in the guide. Install the XR plugin management, and then I'm just going to select the Oculus here for both that and Android. Then I'll go into the player tab and I'll change the scripting backend to IL2CPP. And I will also allow unsafe code. That's going to compile the scripts. I'll have to click that apply button. I'm actually not sure why that popped up, but it did. I'm just checking everything's still set up right there. And I'm putting the URP global package. Now that's all stuff that's in the guide. You can follow that if you need more info. But yeah, you can see after doing that it should have cleaned out the errors. Now I'm opening up the sample scene that came with the asset pack that I installed. So this whole process is going to start with Terrain to Mesh. So I'm going to go in here and install the universal render pipeline version of Terrain to Mesh. And once that imports, we'll get going. Next, I'm going to go Window, Amazing Assets, Terrain to Mesh. I will add the selected terrain by clicking it in the hierarchy and then clicking Add Selected. I'm going to prefix this with Q1. It's not Q1, but I don't know what else to call it at the moment. Trees, grass, detail mesh, we'll export all that. I'm also going to quickly take a look at the terrain and see how big we should make this. Alright, pretty big terrain. I would say looks a little bit hilly. So let's do like a 300, 300, and 3. So that's going to split the terrain into like a tic-tac-toe board basically if I do 3x3 with 9 segments of it, and each one is going to be 300 vertices by 300 vertices. If you wanted to just do one terrain piece, you would do 900 by 900 to have the same granular terrain. But I think if you kind of like put terrain into like one big chunk, it starts to run into issues. Here you can see it's like already this is a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this. This might take a little bit of time depending on how much I find exporting objects tends to take more time with Terrain to Mesh. So I'm just going to grab a drink while it's doing this. And blam, it's finished. So yeah, terrain's finished. That took like 2 hours, so yeah, I'm gonna have to edit that out. But yeah, our terrain has been converted. I'm gonna disable the standard one. Let me remember where we left off now. Okay, so we have this scene. We want to convert the shaders now, I think. So this is where I'm going to open up the tool. I go to Setup Map. I can't remember if I did this last time, but there's a thing that says you have to convert the terrain if you haven't. The first time you run this tool, you want to make sure that you click this checkbox. What that's going to do is create a new scene, and then it's going to save everything that it creates in that scene. So if you don't create that, it's going to create it in Demo 1, which is probably fine to be honest in this case, but it would overwrite this scene here, which we don't want. So let's call this Q1, I guess. Then I'm going to open the shader replace tool to start swapping out the shaders. First, let's do this particles alpha blended. So now I may not have explained this properly. I know some of you have shown this tool, but basically the way a shader works is it has a bunch of different inputs, and it does stuff with those inputs to create a final output of what it should look like: the texture, the shininess, the bumpiness, the um, different traits. So if you want to like Google what is an albedo map or a metallic map or a normal map or a height map, it might tell you a little bit about what that map is supposed to do. And we want to each shader will have its own like reference names to these. So like imagine like a variable, like we'll call X this first texture and Y this next texture and Z this next texture. But every shader is written differently. Maybe on PP opaque lit, the texture file is called B, and the second one is called C and D, and so on, or whatever. They have different variable names. So what we're trying to do with the shader replace tool is map the variable names for this texture to the variable names of our target shader. So for standard, like these are the texture files here, and I want to map these. I want to map this to let's do like a standard one first. This one, and we'll map it to onward opaque PP opaque lit. So if I add a texture mapping, you can see on the source shader that we have main tech, metallic gloss, bump, parallax, occlusion, emission. What you're going to notice is that these line up with the same order you see them here. So like the first one is the main text. The second one is the metallic gloss map. And that's, you can see over here, it's the metallic. The third one is the bump map, which is the normal map right here. The parallax map is the height map, and the occlusion map is the occlusion, and so on. So that's how they line up for this source shader. If I were to change this to PP opaque lit, you'd see on my destination shader, which these are the destination properties here, that they're also going to match up. Base map to spec gloss, bump, emission, and you can actually see here on the standard shader that there's no texture file here. We want to take the, and I'm going to Control Z that. We want to take the main texture and put it in that base map. So in that case, we're going to take the first one here, the main text, and we're going to map it to the base map on PP opaque lit. And by doing that, I'm also going to set up the other one. So I'll take the bump map, which is this normal map here, and I will map it to the bump map on the other one. And since these are the same, you actually don't need to change it. Again, remember in here, if I were to Control Y that, you'll see the normal map actually did line up, and that's because they have the same name. So I'm going to put it here anyway because it won't hurt anything. I'm just saying map this one to the normal map on the other one, and since it's already there, you could take it or leave it. That's pretty much all I'm going to map for these. So I'm just going to go ahead and click replace shaders, and now you can see it brought the main texture over to the base map on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of these particles. We'll go to onward particle lit, and I will add main text to main text. And I also like to put the main text in the emission map, and that's like kind of not what I've been saying, right? But there is no emission map on this one, and I find that particle lit actually looks good when you have the main map lined up to the emission map. So I'm just going to do that, and basically it's going to reuse this texture and put it also on the emission map. I'll replace those. Go to the next one, standard specular setup. We'll do the opaque lit for this one. Add texture mapping, main text to base map, spec gloss to spec gloss, bump map to bump map, and we'll go emission map to emission map. Replace tree bark optimized. That's actually, think because it's a tree it'd be alpha clipped, but this is probably just the bark. So main text to base map, bump map to bump map. What else was there? Emission map. Yeah, we can leave that. Replace Then for the leaves, these are probably going to be alpha clipped, so I'll go to alpha clipped, and I'm just going to use the quest one. We'll do the PCVR, and then maybe change them later. Main text, bump spec, and translucency. So we're going to go main text to base map. Bump, and you can change the shader here just to see what they are if you don't know what those are, but I'm going to assume that's the normal map. After you've worked with them enough, you kind of start to like recognize the names. Replace those. Actually, that looked like something changed. Oh, that's because of the lighting on them. And what else we got? Terrain to mesh splat map. We're going to actually I'm going to do the other one because I already have alpha clipped there. That's actually a glitch, I think, where it's not refreshing. There we go. Yeah, for some reason it's giving me the I think I have to change the. Yeah, there is a little bit of a glitch going on here. I think it only refreshes these lists when you change the destination shader is what it is. So for this one, I'm going to go base map to base map. That's all we really got to do. And then I'll do the terrain to mesh, which I will change to onward terrain PP opaque layered. And I'm going to map the splat map to the control map. The rest of these, I think I can just leave the same because I kept the same name. So I'll just cancel out of that, replace. And now we should have all PP shaders. And if I go back to the tool, you can see that went away. Now, next step, I'm going to go around. And by the way, if you want to make any edits to your map, this is like the time to do it. Either now or before you do the shader replace, and then you go back later and fix them. So we can see we have a couple shader issues on this scene now. For example, this right here, these should be alpha clipped, but it put them as opaque lit. So I'm just going to manually fix these. PP alpha PCVR. Rest of that looks good. All the trees look super bright. That's because of the lighting that's being used on them right now. Something's going on with this. I think it's just the asset file itself isn't very good. There's a lot of like Z-tearing on that. I'm not sure if these windows are these supposed to be transparent. Maybe that's it. PP transparent lit. Ooh. Yeah, I think that was it. Alright, what next? I am going to end up using the quest lighting on that stuff, but we need alpha clipping here. I'm just making them all PC VR. Ooh, something going on here. Specular color. Okay. So for the specular color for opaque lit, you kind of want that to be black on everything, or else it's going to be like super bright like that. And maybe on some things you want that. Maybe not that bright and shiny, but what I'm going to do is open up the shader replace tool, and I'm going to select PP opaque lit, and I will select them all. And now I can like make mass changes on the oh, some of them are disabled objects, so I'm gonna have to find another way to do that. I guess maybe I can just set them manually. That doesn't usually happen. Usually like there was like one or two that were I'm gonna go to post-apocalypto. I'm gonna filter for material. And basically I need to set all the PP opaque lit ones to black. Um, yeah, and this is why it doesn't like these disabled ones. Um, yeah, I mean, we're going to use simple lit, so I'm just going to convert them now, by the way, because I'm going to make this for a quest. So I'm going to go Tools, Shader Replace Tool. I'm going to select all the PP opaque lit ones. Normally I'd go through and I'd fix each material, but for time's sake on making this video, I don't want to do that right now. So I'm just going to make them opaque simple lit and swap them. All the reference names should be the same. The other thing I'm going to do is change the PCVR grass to PPC or to the Quest version. And now it's starting to look a little bit more respectable. We got some more alpha clipped here. Change it to grass, or sorry, alpha. What else we got? Oh, the terrain we need to scale. Oh, and it's also using the opaque layered one right now. Didn't get all the normal maps for some reason. And I will scale that by, like, let's go 200, 200. We'll go 300. That looks respectable. Next. So I mean, we can add some wind to the grass by coming down here and putting in a noise texture. I don't have a noise texture, so I'm actually a little trick. I'm going to use my splat map, and we'll do 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Way too much. Let me go to always refresh, and I think I have to click play once for this to start working, because I've been noticing some weird stuff with that. I'm going to save real quick, and then I'm just going to go to play mode. I think the grass will start moving. Oh, it's going to do this whole import thing right now, though. Okay, so the grass isn't moving. I don't know why at the moment. We'll look into that later. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. I noticed that on the last map too, but then it just started working when I went into play mode one time. Okay, so yeah, we have all PP shaders now, and I think everything's set up the way it should be. Maybe I'm missing some glass actually.
any other? A lot of them. Alright, I think that's enough for all of them, maybe, hopefully. Got some more alpha clip stuff here. Is that just part of the terrain? Might just be part of the terrain. Don't know why it's been doing that. Alright, yeah, all of our materials I think are good to go. We'll move on to the next step, which again, I need to set the scene name in here. We'll call it Q1. And then we'll split. So I don't know if this is coming up on an end here, but there are some things I want to talk about, which I'll just do while this is running. So I just wanted to mention quick what this is doing, because it's not really clearly defined on. I tried to make a lot of the stuff that it's doing behind the scenes, so it's like not a bunch of different buttons that you're clicking and whatnot, but basically this is going to create a folder called _Q1 in your project view. And within that, it's going to create a prefabs folder, a meshes folder, and it's going to take every object that has multiple materials on it and rip them apart so that, like, let's say you have a tree, like the tree right in front of us. That tree has 2 materials on it. It has one for the leaves, which is one submesh, and one for the bark, which is another submesh. It's going to take both of those and rip them apart so that you have 2 different prefabs. One is just going to be the leaves, and one is just going to be the bark. By doing that, it makes things like a little bit easier to hide when you're doing like occlusion culling and perfect culling. Because like, let's say you're walking under a bridge and you can't see the leaves of the tree because they're up in the air. You can hide those with occlusion culling or perfect culling, whereas if they were the same object, it's draw the whole thing or draw nothing. The other thing it'll let us do is kind of like individually decimate those 2 objects instead of like decimating the whole thing as one, which is going to give you like a little bit more control over like which like part will be lower quality. And I say you control, but the program's actually going to like know that, and it's going to work with it in that way. The other thing is you can separate the collision. Like the bark you would probably want to be wood impenetrable, whereas the leaves you wouldn't want a collider on those at all. You want grenades to be able to go right through the leaves, stuff like that. So there's just a number of benefits for doing it that way. And that's what this first step is kind of doing. But it's also creating new prefabs, and it's exporting those meshes so that you have all these things as like separate objects in your map. So whatever you're doing with your old map, you'll still have those prefabs, you'll still have the old scene, and that old scene is going to be tied to the old prefabs, and this new scene is going to be tied to your new prefabs that are all configured in this special way. Yeah, and the next thing it does is it is generating the light map UVs. So I know a lot of you who have been making maps for a while, you would go in and on a lot of your models, you'd click generate light map UVs, that little checkbox in the import models. This is going to do that for you, although it's not literally going to be checked. It's just going to do it in the background. One important thing to know is you no longer want to go in and check that box. And the reason for that is this is kind of creating the UVs in its own way. And when we get to doing bakery shared light UV maps, you want to make sure that the LOD1 UV maps line up with the LODs, the LOD1, LOD2, and LOD3. They all line up with the same UV things. That's going to be necessary to make one of the more advanced features of the bakery work, which is going to give you better lighting, less popping on LOD shifts. It's just smaller map file size. It's just way better to do things that way. So yeah, this is taking care of that for you. It's also going to organize your map. Right now we have like stuff is kind of messy. It's going to like put all the prefabs together, which that's another thing you don't want to mess with because that's good for optimization. Like you want all the prefabs to be together in the same light group. Another thing it's doing is it's calculating the surface area of each of these meshes and kind of dividing them up into light groups based on the file size. By default, it's going to create one with like 120 megabytes of light map space, and it's going to create like 10 light maps, which is that's a really good lighting quality.
Okay, so it looks like that finished. So I'm just going to take a look because it looks like something's got screwed up. Okay, so this is normal. This happens. Basically, what is going on here is this asset pack had collision meshes, which it converted into renderers because it thought they were. So I'm just going to delete all those. Boom. Okay, so here we have a map. All the LEDs have been taken out. Your map's been organized and, excuse me, it's been put into these different, like, light green means that it's low trees, red means that it's high trees. We're trying to optimize the map, so you want stuff with low trees. Yeah. But this is how it organized it. One thing you want to pay attention to is at the bottom of the console. I think I still have too much logging in here. Yeah, maybe it doesn't do it for this one. But yeah, so anyway, here's our map, submesh separated. The trees have probably gone way up. If I look at the game view and the stats, we're at 8 million trees roughly. So next I'm going to run the decimation tool, where this is where you kind of get some of those trees back. So I'm going to click decimate message, and it's going to bring up this tool, which is going to show you how complex all your assets are on like a scale of a number of trees per square meter of surface area and the number of trees total. This actually looks like a really simple asset pack. Just looking at this, like usually I see stuff in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but regardless, it's still 8 million trees, so we probably want to do like a little bit of something. So I'm gonna say decimate stuff that is lower than
higher than 200 trees. I wouldn't go much lower than that. And we'll bring this back to so it decimates like all those objects. And then you can play with the decimation aggressiveness. I'm going to kind of go a little bit higher, I think, just to see how it looks. And then just click decimate meshes. Then it's going to go through each mesh and decimate it and save it to the prefab. If you want to see what objects are going to be affected, you can click this preview affected objects, and it will select everything on the map that has basically is white. You can see basically it's brighter white for the more decimation that will happen against it. Yeah. We can also create LODs from this tool. Typically, the order I like to do this is to decimate and then create LODs off of those decimated meshes. And that way you're like, because when you create LODs, it doesn't decimate the LOD 0. So this way you're like decimating everything and then saying, give me a couple things that are even lower quality. If you don't like how it decimated, you can click this bottom button to revert everything back to the original, which will also remove any LODs you've set up. Okay, so that's completed. You can see it adjusted this refresh graph data. It should be doing that automatically, but I also put it there just in case you like change something manually in your scene. This won't know that. So I'm just going to kind of look around and see if that really screwed up anything. Overall, I would say seems decent. Yeah, and you can actually see the amount that it decimated up here. You can see it decimated this to 47% of its original trees, that to 42%, that it didn't touch, that to 43, didn't touch that one. This one it brought to 72%. Now we're at 6.4 million trees. But overall, I honestly can't even tell that it did anything. Can you? Maybe here. That looks pretty... Yeah, this was decimated 29% of its trees. So if you do see an object that it like kind of screwed up like this, you can... It added this mesh reverter component. So you just click that to reset it. It's just going to do it for that one object, so you have to select all of them and click reset. And that just reverted all of those telephone poles back to the original. These look screwed up. I am going to revert those. What else? Other than that, I'd say looks pretty decent. Maybe these could have been done a little bit less aggressively. Those were brought to 23% of their trees. I'll just leave that 30%. Yeah, and if you don't like how it did this, you can always revert everything right here. Another thing I just noticed, which I'm going to fix now, we forgot to change this to glass, so I'm going to change that now. EP transparent lit. Got a little bit darker. Okay, so back to the decimation tool. Next, we're going to create some LODs. So click the checkbox And same deal as before, except this time it's red, yellow, and blue dots. So it looks like it kind of set this pretty low already. I'm going to move this in so we get a couple more LOD2s. Actually, I need to bring this down to like 50. There we go. I'm also going to try and get this just a little bit lower. And this tool, by the way, is going to be a little bit laggy, just because it's like doing a lot of data here. And also you can click on objects and see them in the chart. I forgot to mention that. So like you see how that dot's bigger. I click on this one, now this dot's bigger. So you can see like exactly which objects. Again, I can preview which objects are going to get LODs by clicking that button. And now I have everything that is going to receive an LOD selected, which is all this stuff right now. And another thing I want to point out is this little thing here that's saying that we have the bakery installed, but it's saying that we don't have the GitHub branch. So to use the shared UV stuff that I always talk about, which basically gives you better lighting, it makes it so stuff doesn't pop, and it's just way more efficient all around. We need to use the GitHub branch, which is like the experimental branch of the bakery. So to do this, you go bakery, utilities, check for patches. That will prompt up this window where it asks you for the invoice number for your purchase, RT preview, which you may not have. This is I think you can leave it blank if you don't have it. But that's like the real-time bakery it's another asset on the store. And then your GitHub username. If you don't have a GitHub, you'll have to create one. So just go to GitHub, create an account, and then put in your username here. And then put in your lightmap or invoice, which you can get from the Unity store. If you go to your purchase history, they'll have invoice numbers for each of your purchases. So I'm going to pull that off to the side of the screen and fill out that info for myself from another map I have, because I've already filled that out a few times. And then you just click check, and it should like go out to GitHub and get your get the newest version of the bakery. And it's doing that right now on my other monitor. So alright, it just finished. Restart to apply it. So now I have to actually close out of this. And close out of this. I will save the map and restart it. In the background here you can see another map I was working on. This is just nothing really. I'm just using it to test the tool. I've tested it on like 4 or 5 asset packs. It worked on all but one right now, and I think that one was doing some really weird stuff. I feel pretty good about it. Overall, I think it's going to work on most asset packs out there, unless they're doing some like really weird stuff with some of the submeshes and whatnot. The one I didn't work on was like the farmhouse from Not Lonely. They had some scripts which would like adjust what types of prefabs they were using, so I think they were doing some like doing some map building with the scripts, and it was just a weird situation. I think is why it didn't work. Okay, so I just applied the bakery patch, and I'm going to go back into the tool. So tools, onward, extra tools, setup map, and it remembered where we left off. Also, now we can leave this unchecked because now it knows our scene name is Q1. This is a pop-up unrelated to the tool. This is just because bakery was installed. I'm just going to click yes. And it's going to compile some scripts. That should have popped up before this popped up, but it was just the timing, I guess. Anyway, yeah, this is all looking good. So I'm going to go back into the Decimate Mesh tool. And I need to reset this up. So we already decimated the meshes. Now we're just going on to the LODs. Now you can notice that little warning sign is gone. So again, I'm going to crank this down to like basically 5, and I want to crank the top end of that to like 27, or I could do it over here too, but I think it's going to be easier from right here. Oh, and I had this set to like 200, like 153 about. And yeah, I think that's about where we had it. There's some blue dots in here, yellow dots in here. I think that looks okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click generate LEDs, and it's going to create all LEDs for all these prefabs, and it's going to set up the bakery shared light settings. If you don't have bakery, it will just create LEDs, which are not nearly as efficient. I would recommend like using more LEDs if you're using the bakery GitHub branch, and using less if you're not. So once that's done, we're pretty much done with the decimation tool, although you're going to want to check the work. So make sure, remember all those things we said we were creating LEDs on, like these rocks here? Those are the LEDs now. Some of them look a little bit more noticeable than others. So maybe you want to reverse some of them, but I think this did pretty good. Oh, we actually got LEDs of the grass. I don't know, some of the grass maybe. If it can't decimate something well, it just won't, and it will create an LED for it. That's what happened here. Like you can see it created an LED, but they're both the same. For these ones, you can pretty much just revert them. And not worry about it, since it really couldn't be oh, well, actually we did decimate those. Once you revert, you can't go back, so we'll just leave it. Maybe I'll add that as a feature of the tool later. Any other things stand out? Sure, we got LEDs of these lights. Yeah. Now those look pretty good. Overall, our trees are now down to 6.4 million. I think that's similar to what we had. I don't think we did too much with the LEDs. Again, the asset pack's already pretty simple. There's something that's standing out. What was that? I swear I just saw something. There's no LED on that though. Weird. Someone had an LED on it, but it didn't. I don't know. That's weird. I'm not going to worry about it. Those cars look like they're LEDing, but it looks pretty decent. Yeah, so I think we're good on the LEDs. Next, we'll go back to the tools, Onward extra tools, setup map. Next, I'm going to do step 3 and reconfigure the prefabs, or reconfigure the collision. This one's pretty straightforward. You just click the button. Okay, so that just finished. So now it's going to automatically prompt up this physics material editor, which is just going to kind of go through. Now, something important to keep in mind about this tool is that it it is setting the material not just for the current object that you're looking at in your scene view, but it's setting it for everything that uses this texture file. And everything that uses a material. That way, instead of like having to do this for like 6,000 different objects on our map, we're only doing it like 100 times. Because we're doing it that way, it's like not going to be as perfect. So you're still going to want to go around and check things after this is done. But right now, I'm just going to it's going to automatically center the view on different objects and just ask me what kind of physics material this object has. And after doing that like 100 times, it will your collision will be completely configured. And here's one where we want to remove the collision from it because these are just leaves. You can actually see where this object. Oh, it's like zoomed in. Yeah, so that's just leaves. I don't want collision on this. It's going to show me different objects that are using that, and yeah, I'm just going to basically remove collision from, I think, pretty much all of them. And that was the last prefab that used it. So now we're on to the next one, metal impenetrable. Okay, that was the last one. It says all physics material have been set. It's recommended to double check this work. More than likely, there's a few issues since we did it the quick and easy way. I know that probably doesn't feel quick and easy, but it beats having to do that for each individual prefab on the map. This almost looks like it should be alpha clipped. Yeah, so the tool's like doing most of the work, but there's still a couple things you have to go in and fix in places. Yeah, back to the tool. So we just did all the collision. If we want to check it, by the way, I go window, window analysis, physics debugger. Now you can see the individual colliders all separated out. This looks wrong, for example. For some reason it left a box collider on that. That's a glitch. Actually, what is this? It does not look prefabbed out. I think this can actually just get deleted. Yeah, there we go. Now our collision's right. That's something our script meant to clean up. It was something that was in the original scene, but yeah, the script was supposed to like strip it out, and it just accidentally left it in, or for some reason. I guess I'll have to look into that. But yeah, seems good. No collision on the stuff we don't want collision on, and the stuff we do want collision looks like it has hitboxes. And it should all be set how we want. Like, I'm guessing this is metal. Yep. Metal. And this is where you would change it if you want to change stuff later, but you would open the prefab and do it. All right. So step 3 is complete. That means all we have left is step 4. So I like to click this checkbox every time just so that way it sets it up fresh. But if you made like specific changes to your perfect culling renderer tags, just leave that unchecked and it won't modify anything that already has one. But I'm going to leave it checked and I'm just going to configure perfect culling and everything. Okay, so perfect culling is now also configured. That means we're done. Okay, so next thing we'll do. We already set up bake lightings. That was part of the split meshes step. So if you look at each of these, we now have a light group on them, which it automatically created, and it defined the resolution based on the surface area of that mesh. Like this one with the terrain, a lot of surface area, and it got an 8K. It got an 8K light map. This one here, less so, 2K. This one 4K. 4K, or no, 512. This one should be higher. It makes a couple mistakes because the algorithm isn't perfect, but yeah, I would say that this one has a lot of surface area. This one got a 4K, 4K, 2K, 8K, 4K, and 2K. That one maybe could go to 4K. In fact, probably should. Well, maybe we don't care about the resolution on the. We'll do it anyway. We'll give it some good light maps here. All right, so light groups are set up. These are actually pretty bad. I'm gonna revert these. Yeah, I think we're looking good. What are we at? 2.6 million trees. Not bad. I'm going to change this to PP opaque simple lit. Oh, simple lit layered. Just because that's a more Quest compatible shader. Alright, so I think we're good there. Next I'm going to set up the bakery lights. So for this, the directional light we have, so I'm going to add a bakery direct light. So bakery has its own light scripts along with all the Unity ones to match each of the Unity ones. So for this one, I'm going to, you just click these buttons to match one to the other, and so that way they have the same settings. I'm going to switch this to baked, although the project isn't configured for baked lighting, so I'm going to fix that by going to Window, Rendering, Lighting, and in the Environment tab, I will is it baked light? No. We'll enable baked global illumination. And I'm going to leave this up because we're going to need the skybox in a second. So the next thing I'll do is I'll create an empty, I'll call this skybox light. And this is going to represent light coming from the skybox. I know that sounds like the direct light, but this is more like, I don't know, you use it with the bakery sort of thing. And it just shoots light from every direction. It makes shadows not so dark. You'll see. So I'm going to position it at 0, 0, 0, and make sure the rotation is 0, 0, 0 as well. Next thing we do is we add a bakery skylight. And then we have to assign a cube map in here, and you'll use the cube map from your sky. So in this case, I'm going to pull up that lighting tab, click here to open up the default whatever. And this actually doesn't use a cube map, so I'm gonna import one unless they have some. Oh, they have some cube maps in. Or yeah, they have a cube map, I think. So I'll go back to the skybox light, and I will put this cube map into there. Oh, maybe that isn't a cube map. These are just pictures. So I'm gonna have to import a cube map for a light window package manager, my assets. Type in sky and import this one. Next I'm going to go to the skybox light and open this. And we'll pick out a sky. Oh, this one. Now click match scene to skybox light. Not a huge fan of that one, so let's try something else. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not that it doesn't match the map, because after I bake the lighting, I could tint the light red and everything and make it actually match that. I just feel like it's like not that cool of a sky. I think. Okay, so I like to crank the intensity on this up to like 2 to 2.5, something like that. A little bit higher on the indirect, and I like to crank the intensity of this up to like 1.4 and something like that. And next thing I'll do is I'll look for other light sources on the map. So I'll go window rendering light explorer. This is going to show me all the lights that are on the map, and this is actually only using the directional light, so we don't have to do anything else. But if you had spotlights, you want to add a bakery point light. If you had point lights, you also want to add a bakery point light. But when you add a bakery point light, and I can't do it on this map, but like here, bakery point light, you have the option to set it to a cube map or actually I've never seen cube map, but yeah, a cone or omni are mainly the two ones I use. I like to use cones more, where you can set like the outer angle and the inner angle of a light, which is what this is. And at high inner angle percent means it's going to be like a spotlight. Like at 100, it's like a full-on spotlight. Whereas like down here, it's kind of just like a little bit more light in the center, but the light still propagates out to the edges, like just more gradually. There's a more gradual shift. But I'm going to remove that. I don't need them for this map, I guess. And then we're pretty much ready to bake lighting. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to bakery, or I need to do the shader replace trick. So shader replace, and I need to take everything that's alpha clipped and make it use universe render pipeline baked lit. Swap them and then select them all. And make sure alpha clipping is turned on with both. Something's weird where it's not letting me select all of them, but the optimized, the stuff it's not letting me. There we go. So now these are all using baked lit, so which means they'll get accurate shadows going through them, as well as like the puddles and everything else that we did before, like this. You don't want like that whole mesh to have a shadow. You want just the outline of this thing to have a shadow. You do that by switching it to baked lit. In fact, on this you probably don't want shadows at all, but it's not going to hurt as long as you set that up right. Okay, so does this have a mission? Just curious. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and bake lighting. Bakery, render lighting. There are certain settings you need to use with this. It's experimental, subtractive lighting, SH. Well, don't use SH unless you're using SH, but that's for like PCVR shaders. We'll make another video on that later. X Atlas, don't change UV processing. Check all these boxes and change the min resolution to 4K. RTX mode, assuming you have an RTX card. And that's it. Again, here's the settings. And a render light map. I'm not going to detect what type of hardware because I already know what settings I should be using. So that looks like the lighting finished. So here we go. Let's see how it looks. Pretty decent, I think. How's our trees looking? 1.7 million now? Starting to get manageable. Got something going on here. Oh, just that mesh. Yeah, I think just the mesh is like that. That would take work in Blender, I think, to fix. That's just a problem with the asset. Yeah, you can kind of recognize some of the stuff from Quarantine, like the overpasses, the bridge. Some of the cars, I think, are the same. Yeah, but looking good. So next I'm going to set up perfect calling. So I'm going to go perfect calling, create baking volume. I am going to move this to the center of the map. Go to the isometric view and I'll turn off the fog. And I will move this to the center and I'll drag it out to the map boundaries. Let's go to there, to there, to there, and to there. You can almost see the quarantine layout right here, right? Almost. You can tell how drastically it's been changed. If this was quarantine at one point, I kind of suspect it was. So yeah, perfect calling is set up. I'm going to drag the boundaries so it's just covering the map basically. And then I'm going to make sure that there's no spot that they can get above, like right here. Need to raise this up a little bit. Oops, that's the wrong one. Seems good. Alright, so from here I'm going to change the baking volume to 1, 1, 1 and a merge down sample iteration of 1. I'm going to open the render selection tools, do only occlude static. Actually, I'm going to deselect that. Add these renderers, and then I'm going to go to settings. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can do this. Perfect culling settings, and then uncheck this and check the native Vulkan renderer. And if you want better accuracy, change the resolution up. I don't care about accuracy. I'm just kind of making this just to show. And so just click. So I'm just going to use the lower resolution. And then I'm going to create baking culling data. I'm going to add an exclude volume, or not an exclude volume, a floating sampling provider. Exclude floating sampling provider. I'll set the distance on that to 3. And then I'm just going to click bake, save. Okay, so perfect culling finished baking. So now we can see how we did. Where's the camera? I need to add a perfect culling baking, or perfect culling camera script to this. And at that point I can click play. And there we go. We're down to 730,000 trees, which is still too many. So at this point, what you should be doing is trying to decimate more meshes, removing small details that you don't need. Anything to get the trees down. The terrain we still need to decimate. I think that is accounting for like it's a lot. I think that's probably most of the trees that we're seeing right now. Now, as for a camera angle, how are we doing? So that's the camera angle of the map right now. I'm going to just kind of take a poke around. $800,000 right there. That might be the highest. Yeah, overall this isn't quite Quest compatible yet. The first test I did was, perfect. It ran, but yeah, I think a lot of this is because of all these background trees and the background terrain. Like, look at how many trees this is. Yeah, I mean, we have like 1 million trees right there, just of terrain. Over 1 million. Yeah, so I think once we decimate the terrain and we remove some of these trees, we are easily looking at a Quest compatible map here. Whether or not that's worth the work. So we'll try again. We still have a million trees worth of terrain, but let's see what happens if I disable that. Yeah, 200,000 trees. So yeah, well, I guess I don't know. We'll do it now. I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna decimate the terrain in Blender, and then I will place some of the Onward stuff, and then I will fire it up and test it, and we'll see if this actually runs on Quest as is.